when Sarah and I talked about this.
For those dialed into politics and this year's election, this was a big night. The first presidential debate between Republican Donald Trump and Democrat Kamala Harris.
Oh, I love political debates, especially presidential ones.
Aaliyah Coles was part of a room full of students at the University of Denver who were eager to see the two candidates duke it out last week.
I think with Harris taking over the ticket and with Walters her VP pick, I think they've re-energized at least the Democratic side of the party.
Surveys bear that out. The change in Democratic nominee has invigorated many young voters.
For me in my circle, there's a lot more enthusiasm. Some of us are here together today, and I don't know if that would have been the case if it was still Biden in the race.
A U.S. News poll released this month found 65% of young adults in swing states now support Harris. Several issues appear to be animating them. One is abortion.
Especially young women, it's a really big deal. Now that Roe's overturned, they're living with something that not even their parents had to live with.
There are also concerns over democracy and the conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine.
If Trump gets elected, our bravest ally is about to get stabbed in the back, and I don't want to see that happen. Also, this is my first presidential election that I get to vote in. I really don't want it to be my last.
The economy, making ends meet, buying that first home, weighs heavily too among this group, much like the population as a whole. Driven in part by superstar entertainer Taylor Swift, there's been a surge recently in young voter registrations. This after strategists say young Black and Hispanic women signed up in big numbers when Harris entered the race in July.
At least for me, it is very energizing seeing somebody in the White House right now as a VP and as a candidate who looks like me.
Still, surveys show Harris underperforming Biden's 2020 numbers among younger voters. This group is more transient and historically doesn't reliably show up at the polls.
Our electoral system is designed in such a way that it actually makes it fairly difficult for young people to vote.
Professor Phil Chen says they're also kind of hard to peg.
There isn't any sort of magic wand that a candidate can wave and say, okay, now I've got young voters. I think young voters, for the most part, look like every other voter.
These debate watchers, who are mostly Democratic-leaning, are definitely plugged in to the race.
I personally put a lot of stake in this election, and I will absolutely be turning out and voting up and down the ballot in November.
Every presidential election matters, but I fully believe that this election matters more.
I'd say it's very important.
Will that sentiment lead to record young voter turnout? Unlikely, but possible. We'll know once the results are in. Hendrik, Sybrandy, CGTN, Denver.